It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Time to get real here for a second. Humans have achieved incredible things with medical science. Wow. Mind-blowing, in fact. We built massive machines that can scan your brain, robots that can perform surgery with unmatched precision, and we're able to give someone a new heart, guys. But one very small thing still manages to outclass us, outthink us, and beat us every year. It's the flu. Joining us Joining us this morning is our resident doc and genius, Dr. Darren Green.
And
you
our
are,
lines
man.
open, yes. So if you've got a question regarding the flu, feel free to call us at numbers 021-430-9881.
Was that a sniffle there, bud?
No, just clearing.
Was that a little sniffle? Or you just...
Oh, goodness.
Oh, the man flu. That's two separate things, flu and man flu.
Good things. Dr. Darren Green, you know, we're talking about the flu, but how do you know what's the difference between a common cold and the flu?
Yes, good question. A common cold involves basically just irritation of the airway. So something as simple as walking past fridges in a supermarket can give you cold symptoms. The irritated nose with a bit of a run and a sniffle is not a flu. Flu involves a greater immune response and a systemic infection. The causes obviously differ as well. You get rhinovirus and so forth causing the upper airway infections that lead to a cold. But then you also get more serious flu, influenza, swine flu, and all those wonderful things that give you systemic body pain, fever, rigors, shivering, and all that kind of thing.
Well, that's the thing, because it does get real. I mean, I'm not diminishing anyone's experience who is suffering from flu at the moment, because you always think, oh, I'm a little bit sick, and then you get it, and you're like, oh, I got flu. I'm really sick.
That's man flu.
That's man flu right there. But it's a real thing, guys. It's a real thing. We've done this study, dude. Don't let me down here. But it slows you down. Your productivity crashes. It's a massive thing in the workspace, because then you are infecting other people around you, and there are so many, like you say, substrains. Talk us through some of those substrains, the most prevalent during winter. You mentioned the rhinovirus.
Rhino for nose, rhinitis. Think of the rhino horn. The viruses, obviously, there are multiple viruses, and a virus needs a live host, obviously, to survive. And with the problem with all the respiratory tract infections and influenza is that it's spread via droplet spread. So the coughing, the sneezing, the touching of hands, the sharing of utensils, a sip of a cool drink or a drink at a bar, for example, boom, and there you go. So you've got to think of how it's spread. But there's so many prevalent strains at the moment. We've got influenza A, influenza B. We've also got RSV in children, which causes a lot of respiratory infections and lung kind of pictures. And then, of course, your swine flus, your H1N1, your H3N1, etc. as well. And they all have very, very similar presentations initially.
Okay. Well, doctor, I wanted to know from you, you know, you just said presentation. I sometimes know, okay, the flu is coming when my whole body aches. Like someone just touching me is like, oh,
and you feel it like that shock wave.
Yes.
Yeah,
Why does
tingles,
that happen? Yeah,
so your muscles ache and your skin becomes like that because your body's launching an immune response to the invading organism. It's taken a photo of it like police file, and it's launching an army attack on the virus. There's an alert going on. If you think of the Lego army or whatever, and it's moving in, and in that process, the virus is busy multiplying and replicating, spreading in the blood to the different parts of your body. The muscles obviously are aching as well. And where your immune system meets the virus, that's where you're obviously going to have the war, and that's where you have the manifestations of obviously the pain, inflammation, etc., and the headaches.
And it's like your head is filled with water, you know.
Man
flu, first of all, is a real thing. I'm going to reiterate that. But we're going to get into what I'm going to call the carrier monkey syndrome, okay? How long is something like this contagious, and why should you not infect the rest of your colleagues? But we'd love to hear from you. 021-430-9881. Give us a shout.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
We are talking about colds and flu and rhinoviruses and such things, swine flu. And it is a swine, the flu. It really is. It's a low-down, dirty virus. But we've got a viewer question coming through before we get into kind of the carrier monkey syndrome, as I was talking about it. Dr. Green, my nose is blocked, my eyes are burning, and I've been coughing all night. Are these flu-like symptoms?
Yes, they are, certainly.
Thanks, Fakes McKay.
Often when you start coughing, the bronchus, the main airway, starts to become affected. So initially just a cold. But a normal common cold lasts up to 7 days in terms of just the rhinitis, the tearing eyes and so forth. But when it starts becoming systemic, when you start barking, coughing, your body starts aching, and you're starting to get fever spikes, that's when we start moving into flu territory, and that's when you need to watch out for signs of the complications of influenza, which can kill people.
What are some of the signs you need to look out
Pneumonia is a big one. So resistant fever, pneumonia, seizures in children, obviously, because what happens is that virus can spread into the nervous system and give you encephalitis, even meningitis. You get viral meningitis, for example, as well. So you definitely look at how quickly they're breathing, what the oxygen saturation is. You'd also look at the other things, as I mentioned, the central nervous system being involved, suppressed level of consciousness, low energy levels, etc.
Who's most at risk here? Because
Good question.
around this time of the year, we hear these horror stories of kids literally passing away on rugby fields and because of flu. Is it
100%, yeah.
old and young? Are all of us susceptible?
Who are the immunocompromised? The young children. When I speak about young children whose immunities haven't developed yet. So under the age of 4 years, the greatest population that are at risk of influenza and its complications. And then you're very old, older than 65, older than 50 even nowadays, but 65...
Which isn't very old,
It
okay.
isn't.
Just in the master's class.
Pregnant ladies are at risk of influenza and its complications. And then also people that are immunosuppressed due to medical conditions, like HIV, like tuberculosis, like diabetes mellitus, and then chronic medication, people that are on steroids or immunosuppressives for other systemic diseases over long periods of time suppress their... So they are vulnerable.
Just very quickly, while it's in my head, sorry, Zoe,
Go for
just
it.
what do pregnant women do to combat flu? If they're one of the most at risk, what do they do? Because there's very little that a pregnant woman can take that's not going to affect
The flu vaccine is important for pregnancy, and you're allowed to take the flu vaccine in pregnancy. Good to have it governed by your gynecologist or obstetrician being involved, always. And then obviously to understand that they can't take normal medication for sinusitis and all that because of the heartbeat and pseudoephedrine, etc. Can give them palpitations. They've also got to look at what can affect the baby, cause birth defects and so forth. So pretty much ladies know that saltwater spray and paracetamol during those colds and flu episodes. But there are 1 or 2 products on the market that are have been tested and are safe. Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to have more with Dr. Darren Green after the break, so don't go anywhere. Our lines are open. If you've got a question or a comment regarding the flu, feel free to call us. Yes, that number's 021 430 9881. And doctor, when we get back, I would love to know about taking sick days and people actually just using the time to recover. But we'll unpack that with the good doc after the break.
100%.
It's my feel good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso. It's time for our medical chats with Dr. Darren Green, and we are tackling flu-like symptoms. So if you've got a comment or a question, our lines are open. That number's 021 430 9881.
In fact, we've got Doreen on the line right now. A very good morning, Doreen. I'm connecting with you, hoping that you don't have the flu. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling a little bit better, but I did have the flu really bad.
Oh man.
So what is your comment or question for the doc?
How to get rid of the phlegm?
Oh.
Good. So she's got lots of phlegm. I can hear it in her voice there. I'm starting to develop
Doreen.
some.
Sorry,
Just listening
man.
So fluids. So how you keep the viscosity, the flowability of mucus under control is by consuming enough fluids. You need to drink enough water so that the respiratory hair cells can actually move that phlegm along. Have a good cough reflex. Know how to cough. If you don't know how to cough properly to move phlegm, then the physiotherapist will definitely be able to help you. There's some exercises they do to help you open the alveolar, like taking a thick silicone pipe and then blowing bubbles into a bottle of water that keep the alveoli open. Practical tips. But in terms of medication, there are things like your N-acetylcysteine that dissolve, like ACC 200, for example, that basically dissolve or make the thick mucus thinner. But the principles remain the same. Steer away from lots and lots of dairy, obviously, because that could make it worse. And then obviously look at moving. Exercise or walking moves also the phlegm around and actually opens the sinuses.
But they always say when you've got the flu, you should stay away from exercise. But this is because she's at the end of her flu. It's okay? Yeah,
it's okay to walk. There's nothing wrong with walking. Monitor your heart rate. If it's not above 100, all is good. The reason why they say don't exercise while you've got a bad flu bout is because some of the viruses associated with flu-like illness can damage your heart. They weaken the heart muscle. The infection can get to the heart, weaken that muscle, and then you have ventricular dysfunction, or even the sac around the heart can get pericarditis, which is inflammation of the sac around the heart.
I might seem like an absolute idiot. Doreen, first of all, thank you so much, and I'm glad you're feeling better, but get that water in. Hopefully you've heard at least one answer. But is your heart heart as a muscle affected in the same way that the rest of your muscles? Because you ache, you feel it. It feels like you are dying.
You do, you do.
Is your heart affected to the same degree as the rest of your body
Good
when you
question.
get hardcore flu?
When we look at the heart with an echocardiogram or a sonar, certainly the ventricular function, the pump function, seems unaffected initially. The issue comes in, obviously, if that sac around the heart fills with fluid or becomes inflamed, and it restricts the heart movement, or if the heart muscle itself is affected by the virus. That's how you do that as an athlete, is you look at your training zones and how quickly your heart rate goes up. You're suddenly much more tired at the start of a 1 kilometer run compared to you normally cruising at about a pulse of 80 or 90, you're at 140 suddenly. So there's a shift in terms of your basic heart rate, and we often tell oaks to be careful when they train and look at your training zones for heart rate.
Thanks for talking to me like I'm an athlete, though. I love that, man. I love that.
Well, we're going to have more with Dr. Darren Green. Our lines are open, 021-430-9881. We still have to answer my question about sick days, and that's going to come up.
It's my feel good breakfast show.
So we are back with our Dr. Darren Green. We are talking about, I was actually just thinking about whether I'm sick or not. Am I starting to
No,
get
you're
sick?
not.
And we're talking about flu and symptoms and when does it become serious when you should see a doctor. And Zoe's got a very, very important question.
Well, Dr. Darren Green, for me, when I have flu-like symptoms, I like to sleep it off. And I know it's very important for the body to get the relevant sleep. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's some implications when you don't get enough sleep. But let's talk about the sick days and people not taking them to go home and sleep and recover. Yet they have the snotty tissues all over the desk and a lot of coughing. And I was like, ooh, you're going to make me sick. You should have stayed
same
home.
applies to school as well, and social interaction in that sense.
The problem is people don't understand how viruses work in terms of the incubation period. You get to that stage after the virus has already been in your system for a few days, sometimes even up to 5 days. 5 days later, you'll start off with a bit of the sniffle, the sore throat, for example, and the headache, which will then progress to a post-nasal drip and coughing and body pain, etc. The issue with sick days is people don't know when to stay off work. You should stay off work when your secretions are everywhere, and you're going to spread those secretions by coughing, your tissues, your hands, etc. And you know that you're not actually going to recover as quickly instead of resting for a period of 3 to 4 days. The issues come in, obviously, when people have employers that are really hard on them, but then when you have the whole workforce
Well, often it's
out
the
for 2 weeks.
culture of it. It's not
Exactly.
necessarily the rules are the rules, but there's a culture of being an underperformer in that
The
sense.
perception.
I just want to make sure that we can squeeze in this caller right now, and again, hoping that she is healthy and not suffering from flu-like symptoms. We've got Sushi on the line. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, and you?
Good, thanks. Morning to the callers.
Morning. What's your comment or question for Dr. Darren Green?
I just want to know, my son had the flu, and he took antibiotics, and after that, he was suffering with nausea, vomiting, runny nose, and gastro. What can he do about that?
Okay.
So
What's
the
the-
big problem here is if he has the flu, he shouldn't be on antibiotics. And the antibiotics often cause the gastric symptoms that she
They
mentioned,
knock your
Okay.
system.
depending
yeah.
on which one it is. Some of them have clavulanic acid in them, well associated with vomiting and diarrhea, both in adults and in children. And that's one of the most commonly prescribed antibiotics for respiratory tract infections. So ideally, one should know whether you're treating a virus or bacteria before giving someone antibiotics. Simple way of doing that is by doing a blood test, looking at the white cell count and the CRP inflammatory marker, and then that helps you.
I can't ever remember getting a blood test before being given antibiotics. That just
they
does
are
not
often
happen.
given
So
out far too easily by practitioners who feel pressured to do so in many cases because people don't want to come back. So they often say, no, but I know my body, I'm going to get a bronchitis in 2 days if I don't start antibiotics now. And some people know that they get sick quite quickly. The issue is if we treat blindly with antibiotics, it's like a shotgun approach, hoping something will work, and you're not directing your treatment properly. It contributes towards the global problem of antibiotic resistance. And the treatment for
Body's just,
influenza is certainly not antibiotics. Those work against bacteria. And when we're speaking about influenza or flu, we're speaking about viruses.
what's your best remedy? Very quickly.
For flu,
Yeah.
sleep, water, and then I love my teas, hot teas like ginger, lemon, cayenne pepper, all that kind of thing. And then treat your body pain. If you've got pain,
Love
treat your
yourself,
pain
man,
with
yeah.
simple analgesia.
Yeah, and obviously if it's the man flu, just put yourself down, man. Just don't bother. Dr. Darren Green, we absolutely love you. That was very informative. And to all of those of you suffering from flu-like symptoms out there, stay healthy, stay safe. Make sure that you keep yourself out of the system. Don't infect the people around you. But we love you. Thank you so much for your input this morning.